Here in my garage, it's nice to cruise the streets of South Florida sometimes, and just kidding, guys. All right, what's up? Basically, I get a lot of questions about the On3 turbo setup for the 96 to 98 Cobra. I specifically get asked a lot of questions about my car, so figured I would do a just a little overview video of the car itself, and then also a couple of the little things that I did to change the kit to make it a little bit better, in my opinion. So I'm going to go over a couple things with you guys here. It's the On3 forward facing, I guess it's their Gen 2 kit, the 76 millimeter turbo. It's the 7665. So leaving a little bit on the table with the 65 millimeter exhaust wheel. Um, the setup on the car, it's really pretty basic. It's got good rods and pistons in it. They're MMR H-beam rods, I think. It's got diamond pistons in it. Multi-layer head gaskets, ARPs, stock heads, stock cams. It does have Ford GT supercar cam followers in it. Factory lash adjusters. It's got a custom sheet metal intake. This was built by Jake Long at Power by the Hour probably about a million years ago, and it's still surviving on to this day. So AccuFab throttle body, which isn't really a performance item, but it's a bling item, and it looks good with the polished intake. Car is automatic swapped. It's got a built 4R70W triple disc converter. It has 31 spline strange rear end, strange axles, Detroit True Track, 373 gears, C-clip eliminators. It's got an anti-roll bar, UPR uppers and lowers, UPR K-member, UPR A-arms. Relatively basic setup. I'm using a US Shift Quick 4 transmission controller to control the trans, which, by the way, awesome. Can't say enough good things about that controller. Works perfect. It uses 60 pound an hour Siemens Deca injectors, and this car runs on 93 octane pump gas. So I'm going to go over a couple of different things on the swap, or not the swap, but the install rather. Some reviews and impressions on the On3 kit as a whole, and because now I've had the kit on the car for probably, I guess we're coming up close to a year. This car gets driven daily. It gets raced, so it's definitely not a garage queen or a show car. So I put some miles on the vehicle, so it doesn't just sit here. The longevity has been pretty good, and it's held up pretty well. So can't get much of a good angle in the garage here of the car itself, but there's some pictures and stuff online for that. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and start diving in. All right, I'm going to start this off by saying that I'm not very good with video, so I do apologize in advance for the shot of nothing here. But first thing I'm going to talk about is the headers, and a lot of people talking about having issues with the header sealing. The trick to this, in my personal opinion, is to use the factory metal header gaskets, the multi-layer steel header gaskets. Do not use the gaskets that come with the On3 kit. The material just is not going to seal up on you. I also did use some copper spray on the gaskets. With the installation of this kit, you obviously have to do the oil filter relocate. So one of the things that I did, I opted for, this is actually a derail, the oil filter housing relocate there. But I used down here, if I can get to it, and kind of see it in there. I'm gonna have to angle this a bit. There you go. That's a Canton. That's the sandwich style oil filter housing. Basically, I wanted to opt for this piece because I didn't feel that the On3 kit with the rubber lines was up to the task. I wanted to get as much braided steel down here as I could because of all the heat you got going on. It's also a little bit better for the structural integrity of the routing of the lines. You know, the stainless, you don't really get the kinks or anything when you have to make any kind of bends or turns with it. One thing I wanted to note about this is during the installation, if memory serves me correctly, what I did was I put the oil sandwich on, and then I test fit the header. And the reason why you want to do that is because you have to look at the angle at which your oil inlet and outlet are coming out of this sandwich, because you need to be able to route your lines properly. You don't want them obviously touching the header. You've got to be able to get in there to tighten them down. And so you've got to be careful and mindful of how you want to route them. I think there's a few different ways you can route them. I opted to go around the steering shaft like this. So basically I route my lines out and around. I come up and over, and as it focuses a little, into the top of the oil filter relocate housing up there. So it's important that you test fit things prior to clamping everything down so that you know where you're going to end up. Once I did that, I went ahead and buttoned everything down, got the headers all tightened up after the oil filter deal was installed. The headers, you can go ahead and you can tighten those down pretty much right from the get-go. A lot of these bolts are going to be a little bit tricky to get to, but if you take your time with it and you are patient, you can get everything locked down pretty good. Once the headers are bolted down, you can start moving on to the hot side piping. All right, I've moved over here to the passenger side of the vehicle now. As you can see, like I kind of stated before, here's the hot side piping. Now this is not a $5,000 hot side or anything like that. It is the On3 stuff, so the coating leaves a bit to be desired. You're going to get a little bit of a varnish on there, and like I talked about, this car is driven, this car is raced. It is not just sit around, so it sees some weather from time to time. So, but on the hot side piping, the most important thing, and I can't stress this enough, I did this install 100% by myself without an extra pair of hands, so it is possible to do it. If you have an extra pair of hands, that's going to help you immensely. However, it is possible to do it even by yourself. You want to get all the V-bands and all the flanges lined up square before you tighten anything down. I think the biggest mistake that people make when installing this kit is they get excited and they want to go ahead and start clamping everything down and getting everything, tightened up. And that's a mistake, because you move one thing 1/8 of an inch here and it moves everything down there 1.5 inches. So you got to be very careful with making sure that all of your flanges are square and everything is in place before you go to start tightening things down. So once you get everything square, then when you tighten everything down, you're going to get a much more leak-free seal. These are all the factory provided On3 V-bands, and I do not have any exhaust leaks anywhere on this car. So it is possible to get a leak-free seal if you take your time with it. You'll notice that stud's a little bent, and that's because it was facing downward before, and I think it bumped into a parking stone or something. I can't remember, but so I turned it up. Lesson learned. But yeah, like I said, on the hot side, you can get everything leak-free if you take your time with it. The next thing I'm going to show you, another item, as I previously mentioned in the video. I'm going to go over a couple things that I upgraded or that I felt required some attention over the On3 kit. I had an old pair of these Teal Sport wastegates that I had laying around from another car, and I was no longer using them on. So I went ahead and I did the Teal wastegates instead of using the On3 gates that are provided in the kit. They're probably fine, the On3 gates, but I had these gates laying around and they already had 11-pound springs in them. I believe the On3 kit comes with a 6-pound spring, so I was only able to get around 11 and change pounds of boost out of the On3 gates. These springs had 11-pound springs, or these gates rather had 11-pound springs in them, so I went ahead and used these, and I was able to turn the boost up a little bit more. And I still am using the On3 supplied boost controller as well. So this is going to be a particular note specifically for the 96 to 98 guys. The ABS motor, the way it sits, it's going to be in the way, whatever gates you use, whether you use the On3 ones or if you use a different style, it's going to be in the way. Because one thing about this kit is this kit was manufactured for like the 99 and 01 cars. It was not really made for the 96 to 98, even though it is marketed for 96 to like 01 or whatever. So There are some things on the SN95 chassis, the 96 to 98 cars, that are different. So you're going to notice you're going to have to get a little creative with the mounting of the ABS if you want to retain ABS. So I had to relocate the bracket forward a bit to clear it. And I also did a little bit of grinding on the bracket itself. I don't know if you can see it on the video or not. Probably can't. It's probably hidden by the gate. But I had to do a little bit of grinding on the ABS bracket. So, but it's all, it's nice and tight and secure in there. It don't move. It's not going nowhere. But that's just something that you are going to want to keep in mind if you are retaining ABS on these cars. I think I'm going to go back up top and show one more area that's a little bit of a challenge on the 96 to 98 cars as well. Actually, I lied. We're still under the car. There's a couple more things under here that I want to show you guys first. So the first thing is the exhausts. Again, speaking of the 96 to 98 cars versus the 99 and 01 4-valve that this kit was originally made for, you will notice that if you bought one of these kits and you went to install your exhaust, that it ain't even fucking close. So you're going to have exhaust modified to fit this. So basically, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it from the angle. I can't get too high here in the garage with the car. So, but anyway, I did a V-band connection on it because it comes with the supplied band clamp, which I still have right there. So I'm still retaining that band clamp, but this one kept blowing off. So I switched it out for a V-band here. And then on the exhaust, I just had to have some piping welded to be able to fit back there. And then there's the connection, the Y part of it that I was able to retain, but again, I had to use some other piping and weld some bends to make that fit and make that work. And then over here on the oil pan side of things, I did not use the On3. I did not use the On3 oil drain. I used I have a fitting welded into this pan, and I'm using AN lines for the drain up there. So that's another item that I chose to not use the On3 piece for. But I did use the On3 oil feed. It just goes right into your oil filter housing there. And it works fine. No issues whatsoever there. So those are a couple things that I had forgot about underneath the car that I wanted to show you before moving up top. All right, this one's going to be a little bit harder to get on film here because welcome to owning a 96 to 98 Cobra. There's no goddamn room anywhere. But anyway, the inlet for the turbo, for the 99 and 01 Cobra guys, you've got wide open space right here where all the AC lines, they run in a different direction. On the 96 to 98 cars, however, you've got all your AC lines right here. You've got, the brake lines right below it, all the ABS lines and stuff. So you're going to find that you're not going to be able to put a filter right on the turbo like you can on the 99 and 01 cars. So what I did was I got an offset coupler, 4-inch to 4-inch, but it's got a bit of an offset. It's going to be hard to tell on the video here, but there's an offset on that coupler that raises the inlet of it up a little bit higher so you can kind of clear some of these AC lines. Now you're still going to have to manipulate them out of the way a little bit because they're not going to clear perfectly, but that way I was able to use this 90-degree 4-inch pipe, and I was able to get a filter on there so I can run an air filter because, like I said, this is a street car. It does get street driven pretty much daily. So that's another thing that's going to be a little bit of a challenge that you're going to have to work with. I elected on this car also to go with the slot style mass air, and I put it in a 3.5-inch tube, so I've got some room to grow with it as far as not maxing it out as far as airflow counts and stuff. You could always upgrade to like 3.5-inch piping too from the intercooler out, but the 3-inch will flow just fine up to some pretty decent horsepower levels. A couple other unique things on this car. I've got the IAC relocated, so that's actually my reference port for the IAC motor. So I've got one pre-throttle body, and then I've got a fitting behind it for the post intake or post throttle body rather, reference for the IAC. It's not neatly mounted yet or anything like that. I just got it zipped out of the way. I got to build a bracket for it, but it works for now. It's a catch can setup, some dash 12 AN lines running from valve cover to like a distribution block here, and then also onto that valve cover, and then that runs down into the fender well. I've got a catch can down there that it's accessible from right under the car to be able to drain that. You'll notice if you do have a catch can set up on the mod motors, you'll get a decent little bit of fuel vapor in there, so it's not a bad idea. I also use a I got a plane going by here. I also use a vacuum distribution block for all my vacuum references. So it's got one line right off the intake, and then I've got all my vacuum ports coming from there. This car does have also a dash 8 fuel feed and dash 6 return with I think they're MMR rails. So, but yeah, you can see down in there, like, this is, no joke, these are Siemens Deca 60 pound-an-hour injectors. So if I was running E85, I wouldn't be making very much power. This is a 93 octane pump car. As far as track performance, just to get down to some of the more fun stuff, this car is full weight, and I'll show you the interior here. This car is a full weight street car. It's got an 04 Cobra interior in it, but it's there's nothing removed. It is full weight. It's heavy. It does need a radio, which is next on my plan. But it's got a trans brake, bump box, all that good stuff. I got the bump box mounted there. B&M ratchet shifter. In the glove box, I've got the US shift, and I've got a that watt box for the 2-step on there. Forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, performance wise. So yeah, this car probably weighs about 3,700 pounds with driver. Between the automatic and being full weight, all the turbo piping, full AC, power steering, the whole deal. It's not a light car. I've only taken this car to the track for an index event, so we had to run 1050 or slower for that class, and I did do a qualifying pass where I wanted to see where the car was at, but I lifted before the traps, and the car went 1021 at almost 132 miles an hour lifting on about 15.5 to 16 pounds of boost, 93 octane pump gas, and probably 3,700 pounds with driver. So the performance out of these On3 kits, for the money, you can do really well with them. I have some future plans for the car. Don't want to say too much about that just yet, because I'm going to do some local grudge racing with it. But overall, the On3 kit has been good to me. It's performed well in the car. Like I said, if you take a little bit of time and pay some attention to detail, you're going to have leak-free connections. Even using all the On3 clamps, all the On3 clamps, even on the intercooler piping. I did use a Race Parts throttle body inlet there, because it was having, the On3 one was having a difficult time fitting over that throttle body, so I did have to use a Race Parts coupler there. I had one laying in the garage, and then a couple of these others. Obviously I had to get reducer style couplers for the mass air tube, because that's a 3.5 inch to a 3 inch, and obviously the On3 ones are 3 inch to 3 inch. So, but the kit's been reliable. The turbo's been fine. I treat the turbo well. Like I said, it does get raced. It's plenty of street passes on it. It's got plenty of track passes on it. I am going to be upgrading the turbo, because I think that 65 millimeter exhaust wheel is probably holding me back a bit. It doesn't really want to run as much boost as I'd like to throw at it, so I'm sure we're getting some back pressure in there. But with 132 mile an hour traps lifting before the end, the car's 3,700 pound car, it's making some power, so it's about due for that next step up on the turbo. So that'll be the next upgrade, as well as some super secret Saiyan fuel upgrades. So, but anyway, this is kind of my first video, so I do apologize if it sucks, but hopefully this kind of answers some questions on the On3 install, gives you a little bit of a review on how it's worked out for me so far. A couple of the little things that I changed, a couple little tips and tricks on the install. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up, and I'll see if I can do my best to answer them. Take care.